Look, we all go to the store each week with the best of intentions. We want to eat healthier, so we buy a lot of produce. And then by the end of the week, stuff starts to look kind of fuzzy in the refrigerator, and you wind up throwing half of it out. But let me show you a way to shop smarter and use every bit of the produce that you buy, and thus lower your monthly grocery bill. If you don't know me, I'm Hope. My husband Larry's behind the camera, and this is Under the Median, where practical frugality meets real life. Food waste is a real problem in the United States of America. Each year, 120 billion pounds of food is thrown into the garbage. That's like 325 pounds per person. It's like taking 975 of these medium-sized apples and just throwing them out in the garbage. And not surprisingly, the majority of that food waste is produce, because produce has a notoriously short shelf life. Plus, we've been told over and over again by media, by doctors, by everyone around us, that if we want to eat healthier, we need to buy lots of produce. So that's what we do. The problem isn't buying the produce. The problem is the fact that no one has shown you how to deal with the produce after you get it back home into your refrigerator or your countertop and use it before it rots. That's what we'll talk about in this video. But before we get started, if saving on groceries is really important to you and your family, then you want to grab my free guide to cutting your grocery costs. Hundreds of people have grabbed this guide, and many of them have been able to cut their grocery costs in half. It's a free guide, and I'll make sure that there's a link to it in the video description. Now, if you're interested in ways to really lengthen the shelf life of this produce, this video is a collaboration with Amy over at the Cross Legacy. She is brilliant, and I do mean brilliant, at knowing how to get the longest shelf life possible out of produce. So after you're done with this video, you'll want to head over to Cross Legacy and watch that one. I'll make sure there's a link to Amy's video in the description of this video. Let's start with where we all start, right? Going to purchase the food. I'm going to start over here on this side of the table and work my way across, and I've got a whole lot of examples for you. Different places you can buy food, some of which you may not have even thought about. Traditional grocery stores. You want to look for specials. Now, most of the time, these specials are called loss leaders. They appear on the front page of the sales flyer, sometimes on the back page. They're called loss leaders because traditionally, it is believed that the store takes a loss on that leader item. It's a leader item because it's designed to get you into the grocery store to purchase all of your groceries, not just one or two items. Now, you also want to watch these days for 2 or 3 day sales where they drop just a specific number, usually a small number of like 5 or 6 items that will drop down to a deep discount. That's what this was. Our local Hy-Vee. Hy-Vee is a regional grocery store chain in the Midwest. They had this 5-pound bag of russet potatoes, and these were $1.47 for 5 pounds of potatoes. Now, before you purchase something, it's a great idea to have a store list where you list all of the items that you regularly buy, and you have a price list associated with it. So you know what the lowest price is generally available for each of those items. So when something drops to 5 pounds of potatoes for $1.47, you know that's a really great deal. And you're going to stock up the minute that the prices drop to the level that you call your buy price. This was absolutely our buy price for potatoes. Now, I bought 4 of these. Larry went to the store with me. We finagled back and forth before we got to the grocery store, not in the grocery store, as to how many of these we were going to buy. We decided to buy 4 of them. There were a couple of reasons for that. When you're looking at buying something, and you're looking at buying a lot of them, you have to take into consideration, number 1, the size of your family. Number 2, the general shelf life. Potatoes will last at least 4 weeks. Now, there are ways that you can get longer use, longer shelf life out of potatoes, and shelf life is some of the things that Amy's going to talk about on her video. So rather than focus on that in this video, I'm going to tell you there are ways you can get maximized shelf life out of anything that you buy that is produce. These potatoes, the other thing you want to consider is how versatile is it? If your family only likes one recipe with the thing that is on sale really cheap, you probably don't want to stock up on a whole lot of them. because your family's going to get tired of that one note dish over and over and over again. So unless you're willing to branch out and make that one item of produce into different dishes, it's best to take that into consideration before you buy a whole lot of them. The other thing we took into consideration is the holidays are coming up. All 4 of our kids, our daughters-in-law, our son's fiance, our son's new fiance, woo, and also our grandson will be here for the holidays. So we want to make sure that we plan something for the holiday table that is based, guess what, around potatoes. Now, when you buy something, and you know in your heart of hearts, there's a whole lot of ways that you can serve potatoes. You're going to make a list of that when you get home. How many different ways does your family really, really like to see potatoes served? Make a list of it. You're going to rotate through the list so your family doesn't feel like the only thing they're eating every night is potatoes. Here's the next example. Grocery store markdowns. Not every grocery store does markdowns, but a lot of the major stores do markdowns. These were both from Kroger. This was from a special shelf. It used to be 99-cent bag. Anything on the shelf was in a bag, and if it was a red mesh bag, it was 99 cents. And they don't put the bananas in a mesh bag. They just ban them with this special bright orange bag. It is designed to get your attention, by the way. You ever notice that markdown prices are really bright colors? That's part of the way that grocery stores signal to your brain, this is a really good day, good deal. You want to stop and you want to take a look at this. These markdown, I've had these in the house for 3 days, so they are starting to get some spots on them. Guys, we walked in. It was 10:30 in the morning on a Saturday, and that special shelf full of markdowns, it was chock full of stuff. And these bananas, there was bunch after bunch after bunch of bananas, and they were just perfectly bright yellow with no spots on them whatsoever. And I said, I don't care why they banded these bananas. I'm gonna buy a whole lot of them. I bought 3 big bunches of bananas. Now our family likes bananas, so we're kind of working our way through them. If these get a few more spots, I'm going to make that list once again. How many different ways can my family eat bananas? I also know, by the way, that you can freeze bananas. And in the middle of winter, when I'm like, I just really need something fresh, I can grab these out of the freezer. I can make smoothies out of them, make banana bread, anything that one could do with a frozen banana. Here's another example. These are portobello mushrooms. Now, I grabbed these $2.30 for 3 good-sized portobello mushrooms. Once again, I sort of went through a list in my head. How many different ways can I make portobello mushrooms? I was going to make these into portobello burgers, but then you kind of only get 3 of them. And I'm like, what can I do? If you're stuck on something, you think, it's not going to go far enough. What can you do with this item that's going to stretch it so that you use the same amount, but it goes farther and it feeds more people? So I'm looking at making mushroom stroganoff out of these, and then we will either serve it over rice or noodles or baked potatoes. That is going to stretch this so it can easily serve probably 5 or 6 people. We got 4 people in the family. We'll probably eat this stroganoff on top of baked potatoes, because guess what? Once again, we're thinking of ways we're going to use our baked potatoes, right? And then it will probably stretch for someone lucky person to have it for lunch the next day. Moving down the table just a little bit, and this is a place that I have consistently found produce at a good price, and I get pushback every time that I say it on the channel. Farmers markets. Yes, traditionally, farmers markets can be more expensive overall than grocery stores. But farmers markets are like any other place that you shop. You just need to know the tips and strategies to shop there smart so that you can get the best deals. Anything that is in season, especially if that farmer is known for that item. This is butternut squash. I'm just going to put it up next to my head so you can see how big it is. This squash was $3 at the farmer's market. Now, granted, they had some smaller ones there. If you have a smaller family, you can look for that size difference that you want. But this, I know, butternut squash, people consistently think of butternut squash as like a side dish, right? You're going to cook it, you're going to cube it, you're going to serve it as a side dish. Begin to think once again, how are you going to take this butternut squash? How are you going to cook it? And then how many recipes can you get out of this butternut squash? This is like a quiz. How many recipes can you get out of a huge butternut squash? Tell me what you think in the comment section. How many recipes do you think you could use this one squash in? I I'm going to use it in at least 3. I'm going to stick it in my Instant Pot. I'm going to put a cup of water in the bottom of that Instant Pot. I'm going to cook it on pressure for 10 minutes. And you don't have to let the pressure naturally release. You can just take the pressure off as soon as it's done. It will be perfectly cooked. Absolutely perfectly cooked. And by the way, the farmer that sells these, this is the other thing about farmers markets. Now, this farmer is not certified organic, because to become certified organic, it's kind of expensive, and you have to be a certain distance from other fields that conventionally grow crops so that you can certify that there's no overspray and things like that. And it's becoming really, really difficult to do, especially in states like Illinois, where we live, where like there's farmers everywhere. And so this farmer, I happen to know him personally, and he grows using organic methods. Ask around. When you go to the farmers market, you say, what are your growing methods like? They should be able to tell you how they grow. Do they spray? Do they not spray? No spray is usually the way you see it at farmers markets if they're not certified organic. And then you can get crops that have been grown without sprays, without the extra cost of organic that you would pay at a traditional grocery store. I guarantee with an organic squash this size at a traditional grocery store, even if you're talking someplace like Walmart, it's going to be probably 3 times what I paid for this $3 squash at the farmer's market. Here's another example of what I found at the farmer's market. Now, I did something that I sort of call this a judgment call, because you have to look at it and kind of know, how you're going to use something. This, and once again, I'll put it up so you can see how big it is. This cabbage, I think it was $3.25 was what I paid for this cabbage. And they had these smaller red ones. Now, I could have gone ahead and bought like a really large one of these green ones. And yeah, maybe cost-wise that would have been a little better, but I really like to add color, because anytime you see color in fruits and vegetables, it's an antioxidant. And I knew I was buying these because we're going to take a cabbage slaw to a party. So I wanted to have some of this red cabbage or purple cabbage. I think they call it red cabbage, but it's purple, y'all. And I wanted to put some of that in there definitely for color. This was $2 for this cabbage. And once again, you're going to bring it home. The outer leaves of this, I'm going to peel off, and I'm going to save them. Just put them in a baggie in your refrigerator. Don't leave them in there too long. Then I'm going to put them in the microwave. I'm going to cut off here. I'll just show you. Let me take off this leaf, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. You see down at the bottom of this leaf where you have that thick stem? I'm just going to take a knife and I'm going to take out that thick stem so it becomes pliable. I'm going to put it in the microwave in a bowl with just a smidge of water in there, cover it, and I'm going to cook it in the microwave for three minutes or so. What it's going to do, there's going to be a dozen of these leaves in there. It's going to soften them. It's going to cook them just a little bit. It's going to make them real flexible. Then I'm going to be able to fill the inside of these leaves with whatever I want to that is very cost effective. In my case, I'm going to saute a little onion, little garlic, put some lentils in there, and probably some brown rice and some seasoning, probably some seasonings related to fall. I might even put a little bit of walnut in there, maybe a little bit of a couple of raisins, whatever you want your filling to taste like, whatever flavor profile you're looking for. You're going to roll that leaf up, and then you can cook it with some tomato sauce over the top, or a little bit of homemade marinara sauce over the top, and you're going to make stuffed cabbage leaves, and that's going to be good. Now, they kind of shrink. I mean, once you roll them up, 2 of these per person. Don't plan on 1 per person, or you better have a lot of side dishes. So from experience, I can tell you about 2 of those stuffed cabbage leaves per person. Other than that, you're going to make sure that when you cut this core out, that you save the core, most of the core, except this bottom part. The bottom part, I'm going to save. I'm going to put it in a baggie. I have a baggie in my freezer. It's labeled veggie broth veggies. And when that gallon freezer bag is full of trimmings from vegetables, and make sure they're clean when you put them in there. Make sure you wash them first. When it's full, I'm going to put them in the Instant Pot, cover them with water, maybe add some herbs, some seasonings, something like that to give it a little more flavor. But I'm just going to pressurize it for about 12 to 14 minutes and then let it naturally release. And once it releases, you're going to take all the vegetables that are in the bottom. You're going to put it through a sieve, and it's going to be some homemade vegetable broth. And you've made it for for literally pennies. It's whatever it cost you to run that Instant Pot for 14 minutes. Because this is stuff you would have thrown out anyway. Average people would have thrown this kind of thing out. Now, the core that goes down a little farther, did you know that you can slice it really thinly? You can use it in soups, you can use it in stir fries. It's actually incredibly flavorful, but people throw that kind of thing out. Speaking of throwing something out, I'm going to grab something here and show it to you while it's on my mind. Make sure that you're utilizing everything. Do you see these? I'll pull them out. These leaves. Pull the leaves out. There we go. Edible. You can put them in salads. You can put them in soups. You can put them in casseroles. You can eat this part. A lot of people throw this out. I have seen it done, and I have gasped audibly. And I have seen them throw it out. Let's move along over here. I'll move that cabbage leaf out of the way. We move down to this end. Oh, here's the other thing I wanted to point out to you. A couple of the other things about farmers markets. There is an orchard in town where for many years we got what were called seconds. They were apples that were a little bit too big for their shop, a little too small for their shop. Some of them had, a few little bruises. We would buy a half bushel or a bushel of those. Some of them we just put back in the crisper because they were perfectly edible, perfectly fine the way they were. If they had some blemishes on them, we cut them up. We made applesauce for years out of apples from an apple orchard. We have our own apple tree now, so we don't do it as much. But apples are incredibly inexpensive. And once again, in the fall, especially in the Midwest, you find great deals on these because they're ripe and they're ready to go. But right now, we are facing first frost. We had a frost a couple of days ago. It is getting down to freezing temperatures at night. And so a lot of people that you may know may be pulling up their gardens. They have harvested and harvested and harvested. And they are so tired of seeing that garden produce. A lady from church brought all of these. I'll spread them out so you can see them. She had kind of some baskets of them at the back of the sanctuary. And she said, before everybody leaves, please take veggies. She had some tomatoes, some late season tomatoes there too. But aren't these beautiful? And we got ready to leave, and she asked us, she said, hey, there's still some back there. Do you want to take the rest? And I said, you know what, Kathy, if you want someone to take the vegetables, you ask the people in the church who are plant-based, and we will always take more produce. So we brought them all home. And once again, I'm going to make a plan for using these. If I'm not going to use them all up before they start to look a little wilty, I'm going to make sure that I am prepping them and I'm either freezing them or dehydrating them for later use. So make sure it is not hard to prep produce and freeze it or dehydrate it for later use. It is just not. I've done it for years. Sometimes with some produce, you have to take a couple little extra steps, like you have to blanch something. But other than that, really, it's a little bit of prep time, and then you just freeze it. Usually with something like this, you're going to put this on a single layer, usually with some parchment paper, and you are going to freeze them. When they're frozen, then they freeze individually. Because if you put them in a freezer bag just all together, especially if they're cut up, they can tend to clump together. But if you freeze them first on a surface that is flat, just stick them in the freezer. When they're frozen, you can put them in freezer bags and they'll be individually frozen. You can get them out, use them all winter long. This is another example. Our son and his new fiance, they had a garden over at her house this year, and they were pulling up the garden and brought this home. So this, you betcha, this is one of the things I'm going to make sure that I use because my son grew this. That is an overview of all the different places that you can purchase food, and you can get it at a great price. Now, one more place that I did want to mention because this is critical. You want to look in your area for small, locally owned ethnic markets, and I'll tell you why. Because, first of all, we love supporting local farmers and local business owners when we can. But secondly, in ethnic markets, you're going to find produce at prices that are close or lower to what you're paying in the grocery stores. You're going to be able to get to know that owner. Usually when you're talking to somebody there, it's the owner or someone who works directly for that owner, and they're very familiar with the produce in the shop. They're going to be able to tell you how to use that produce. And then they're also going to be able to tell you if it's possible for you to order like a bulk amount of produce, and then sometimes they will be able to order it in bulk and give it to you at a lower price per pound than if you had bought just one or two of them. But usually, once again, it's the owner you're talking to, so they're able to navigate and negotiate that with you. But the other thing that ethnic food stores have, other than really, really great produce at fantastic prices, herbs. I can walk in our favorite store, the Mediterranean Mart, and I can walk out with a huge, huge bunch of parsley. Like, let's just say I'm going to make some falafels and I want some fresh parsley to go in it. I mean, the size of that bunch of parsley is 3 times the size of what you're going to get in those little bitty containers at the grocery store, and you're going to pay a fraction of the price that you would pay for that same amount of herbs at the grocery store. So check with ethnic grocers in your area. Okay, you've got all the produce. You are ready. You are well stocked. What do you do next? You've also gotten it at a really great price, by the way. Here is the key. This is the number one hack that I have for you. We do this every single week on Thursdays. We take the perishable food, we put it out on the table, and we do what is called our perishable food inventory. This is an inventory of all the items that are in our refrigerator that are perishable. This list, by the way, and I'm going to say it, everybody that watches me knows what I'm getting ready to say. Make sure that your perishable food list is prioritized. That means that the items with the shortest shelf life will go all the way at the top of this inventory. Like these bananas that probably I'm going to want to eat soon, or these portobello mushrooms. These have a much shorter shelf life than, say, this butternut squash. If you store it properly, it's going to last you 2 or maybe even 3 months. You want to make sure that your list reflects that, because the items that are at the top of the list, those are the items you want to use first. Those are the items that you're going to Google recipes that I can make with this and this and this ingredient. You're going to come with a group of ideas and you're going to fill out a menu plan. Now, I do all of my menu plans topically, topical menu plans. I make 4 different main dishes. Those I know will have leftovers, so they'll stretch for an entire week. You don't need to make 7 main dishes in 7 days. Make sure that you account for leftovers. Make sure that you account for creatively using those leftovers, maybe morphing it into a different kind of dish, so that if you have some butternut squash left over, you're going to maybe put it inside some tortillas and roll it up with some brown rice and maybe some beans and some seasonings, and you're going to feed your family on just a little bit of leftover butternut squash that wouldn't have stretched to feed 4 or 5 people, but now does because you have put it with other ingredients. We have yet to find that as empty sometimes as we think that refrigerator is, we can feed our family for an average of 3 to 4 additional days using what we already have on hand. And when you fill out a perishable food inventory every single week, you're going to find that to be the case too, because there is food that is ready to eat in your house that is lurking in your refrigerator. You just need to know that it's there, get it out, and use it. Now remember, this is a collaboration with Amy over at The Cross Legacy. I'll make sure that there's a link to her video in the description of this video. But if you are intrigued by the way that we stretch food and we stretch our grocery budget, we spend $200 a month using the exact strategies that I'm showing you in this video. But if your goal is to stretch your grocery budget and figure out how to use this food now effectively, I have a video. I showed you how I used $10 of markdown produce from Kroger, and I made 5 different dishes, and it fed my family for almost an entire week. That video is right over there. I think you might find it helpful to watch it next.